Okay, hello everyone. Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to everyone who has signed in today. I'm Umu from Pusat Dokumentasi Arsitektur, and here's a very warm welcome to our 15th, our 50th Obrolan Heritage Talk. So this is a monthly talk hosted by Documentation Center of Architecture, Pusat Dokumentasi Arsitektur, in collaboration with Indonesian Institute of Architects, IAI, and facilitated by Trisakti University. So before we get into discussion, let's have some warm welcome by our Executive Director of PDA, Buria Febrianti. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Umu. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I would like to thank you for Emily and Joshua for this afternoon session. It was an honor for us today to have you both in this heritage talk. It is a very interesting topics, and we can see that the registration until today is about 200. So wow, it's a fans club of Doh Eain, I think, is on the row. So this heritage talk actually starting in 2016 in collaboration with IAI Jakarta and also with Trisakti University. So without any further ado, I would like to open this heritage talk and welcome all of you to join this interesting heritage talk this afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks for the warm greeting, Buria. We will also have opening remarks from Buriri from Trisakti University. Buriri, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Umu. Good afternoon, all. My name is Riri Winandari. I'm the head of master program in architecture, Universitas Trisakti. And on behalf of Department of Architecture, Universitas Trisakti, I would like to thank you to all participants who joined us today. And in this special program today, in the 15th Heritage Talk, we will be learning from our two amazing speakers, Miss Emily Ru and Miss Cho Cho Sri, about placemaking in the heritage area in Yangon. It's very interesting for me, especially because what your project is, you restore the building in this area that privately owned by community. So it's a wonderful thing. The same thing is happening in Indonesia. So some of Indonesia heritage sites are privately owned, not only the building, but also the land. So the process of assisting the community and improving the quality of the environment in the heritage area is what we can discuss together today. So thank you very much for your coming today in our webinar, and we hope we have a nice, fruitful discussion this afternoon. Thank you. That's Mbak Umu.
Thank you, Buriri, for delivering the opening remarks. Also, before we move on to the next agenda, allow me to read some rules we need to follow through throughout this discussion. Okay. So, please write your full name when entering the Zoom meeting room to make identification easier, especially EIE members for Nilai Kum. It should also be noted that for members of the EIE, Kum points are only obtained for participants who attend Zoom. All discussion participants who have entered the Zoom room meeting are expected to set the microphone in mute during the discussion. Video can be displayed or not, it's optional. For participants who do not mute the microphone, the host or moderator has the right to remind and or mute directly. If the room has reached its maximum capacity, Obrolan Heritage can be also watched on our YouTube channel. Also, we will have 2 photo sessions after the presentation and after closing, so it is advisable to turn on your camera. And then the discussion will start after presentation and photo session, but the floor is open for question prior to discussion via Zoom chat or YouTube live chat. Okay, so that's the rule we need to follow. So in the next 2 hours, today's session will feature the subject of heritage and placemaking, presented by our 2 special guests from Doh Eain. So Emily Rowell is a social entrepreneur and consultant, an anthropologist by training. She is interested in creating solutions that make us of and preserve cultural and natural capital while also creating sustainable community impact. Emily is the founder of Doh Eain, so a social enterprise aimed at heritage conservation and urban regeneration based in Yangon, Myanmar. Doh Eain brings together skills in human-centered design, architecture, engineering, and restoration, designing solutions that improve private and public space in cities for the benefit of families, the community, and the city at large. I'm sorry, do you see my presentation on full screen or?
It's a square, Umu.
Oh, okay.
It's not full screen. I think your ratio of screen ratio.
Oh no.
Still cut.
Still cut. Wait.
Click to enable editing. Click to enable editing, please. And you will be shown the full screen.
Unmute yourself, Umu.
I'm sorry for the technical error. So Emily Rowell, an anthropologist by training, she is interested in creating solutions that make us of and preserve cultural and natural capital while also creating sustainable community impact. Emily is the founder of Doh Eain, a social enterprise aimed at heritage conservation and urban regeneration based in Yangon, Myanmar. Doh Eain brings together skills in human-centered design, architecture, engineering, and restoration, designing solutions that improve private and public space in cities for the benefit of families, the community, and the city at large. As a consultant, she has carried out research, advice, and led programs in collaboration in the areas of cultural and environmental conservation, good governance, gender equality, and alternative finance. She works and has worked for the EU, UNDP, WWF, IUCN, and a number of other international NGOs and local civil society groups in Myanmar, as well as in the Pacific and Tanzania previously. She was the Asian Venture Philanthropy Network's representative in Myanmar between 2016 and early 2019. Emily studied at Leiden University, the University of California at Berkeley, and at University College Utrecht, and holds 3 master's degrees in cultural anthropology and development sociology, political philosophy, and religion studies, and a bachelor's degree in development studies. Also, we have Cho Sue. Cho is a practicing licensed architect, graduated with a Bachelor of Architecture in 2012. She has more than 7 years of experience in the architecture and building industry. She has been involved in the Yangon Secretariat Building Conservation Project and is continuously pursuing to become a heritage conservation architect. She believes that Myanmar has an intrinsic and unique built environment and historical heritage, and the fact that there are no specific laws and regulation yet is a main reason she joined Doh Eain and Doh Eain's bottom-up approach to preserving and conserving Yangon's built heritage and intangible heritage as much as possible. After attending the conservation course in Penang, she has been working on a number of significant historic buildings and developed a conservation management plan for Bogalai Street. She became interested in public spaces after joining Doh Eain, where she experienced the positive impact of placemaking, how it can shape and bring the better quality of life to the communities and neighborhoods. Cho's mission as a placemaker is to improve the existing urban spaces through community engagement and inclusivity, and to shape the city which is more livable and sustainable urban landscape together with the community. Okay, so that's the short bio. Okay. So that's the introduction for our speakers. I would like to welcome Emily and Cho to directly present the presentation and share the knowledge. Let me share. Can you see already the presentation? Okay, so would like to go first, Emily or Cho?
Okay. A small procedural question. Can we click it through, or will you click?
You can tell me when to go to the next slide.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Umu, and hello everyone. It's a real pleasure and honor to be invited to talk about our work in Myanmar here this afternoon. Yeah, a huge thank you to the Trisakti University, to the Documentation Center, and to the Institution of Architecture. This talk comes at a welcome moment. It is very nice to connect with heritage practitioners, heritage enthusiasts, placemaking enthusiasts in Indonesia and from across the region. Several of you have probably seen in the news that Myanmar is going through a bit of a difficult time these last 2 months. This came unexpected since the 1st of February, and it's affecting the day-to-day situation quite heavily here. It is also impacting our work quite heavily. So I just wanted to make a little disclaimer that this presentation is based on our work over the last years and the period that we've had in Myanmar since 2011, when the country started reforming and opening up more. So in this presentation, we will not make references to what might be happening now, because we're not quite sure yet how the new political situation will affect our work. So yeah, you'll probably, there are question marks now around some of the things that we do, but we just tell the general story now as if nothing had happened, while we see how the situation here develops further. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, So we are a participatory design practice, and our vision is livable, inclusive, and sustainable cities in Myanmar. And we do that by preserving heritage, improving public space, and organizing activities that connect people with places. And so at the bottom here, you see the 4 sort of areas of work, or the 4 teams also that we have in the organization, that being a community engagement and research team, a restoration team that specifically works with privately owned buildings. I will be telling you more about that. Then our public space team, which works closely with the community engagement team on transforming public spaces. This is the part that my colleague Cho will be talking about more. And then we work on capacity building and outreach activities as well, which we will go into a little bit less today. But I think it's quite easy to imagine what that kind of work is. It's around training local government practitioners in the many techniques that are relevant to our kind of work. Next slide. Yeah, also, I just wanted to put these 5 principles in our work already out there. Hopefully they'll become more clear also in the presentation. But we wanted to put them here at the beginning, because these really define how we select and how we shape all of our projects. So all of our work is about participation of the ultimate end users, which can be the owners of buildings, neighborhood residents. Our work is very, very collaborative. Inclusion is a very important value. So we make a lot of effort to make sure that everyone is able to participate, from men and women to young and old, different ethnicities, religions. Yeah, to really sort of harbor that diversity that makes Yangon so special ultimately. Our work is asset-based, so we start with strengths, with resources that exist in the community. So we don't approach the city as a place full of problems. We approach the city as a place full of treasures that we can work with and develop further, polish further. So really taking that positive, encouraging approach. Environmental sustainability. So we very much look at how our projects can reduce energy use, how we can contribute to greening in the city, health, etc. And then a final important one is that we have a strong livelihoods dimension in our work. So we're looking not just to improve the physical environment, but in doing so, we look to create income opportunities for a variety of people. Thank you. So what we will be talking about today, and maybe it's good to just point out where some of this is also coming from, because we, and also myself personally, you've seen in the bio just now, I am not an architect. I actually come at this work more from a social anthropology dimension, from a public governance type of dimension, but also very much as an entrepreneur. I think an important approach, just as that livelihoods dimension has from the beginning been to try and build an organization, and we are in fact a company, a social enterprise, to build an approach, a model for work that is financially sustainable. So creating incentives for people who own heritage or who live in neighborhoods, incentives that go beyond just the moral imperative or the cultural imperative of the importance of preserving heritage, but also looks to create other direct benefits, not only quality of life, aesthetic enjoyment, but even as much as possible, financial rewards. So that is really inherent in our model. And we take a very entrepreneurial approach. And so this doesn't mean that we are a company driven by profit, but we do seek to be a sustainable impact venture. So I will be talking more about that model that we have developed for the restoration of privately owned heritage. And then afterwards, Joe, my colleague, will talk more about the public realm improvements that we do hand in hand with that restoration work to make sure that the impact of our restoration work spreads further that we don't just improve buildings, but that also the streets and the surrounding public realm become more pleasant. And so that altogether the historic downtown core of the city becomes a more attractive place to live. Just before I continue, am I clear to, is it easy to hear me and everything works well? Great, okay. Let's go to the next slide, yeah. Okay, so I'll give a little bit of background. So as everyone is probably aware, Myanmar used to be a former British colony. If we go to the next slide. And back in the days, Yangon was or Rangoon as it was called then, it was a very well spread out, well planned, very, very pretty city. It was often called the Pearl of the East. There were many impressive large buildings, variety of religious buildings, wide streets, greenery, altogether a very pleasant environment. Next slide. These are just some photos so we can click through. A tram system that connected the riverside with Shwedagon Pagoda. This no longer exists. And then, if we go to the next slide, in 1962, there was a military coup here, which brought the country into a relative state of isolation. So since 1962, the development of this country has been slower. The country has been quite isolated because of the military power, leadership, and limited international relations. If we go to the next slide. So our work started very much in the wake of the reforms that started in 2011. This is when the country started liberalizing and when the influx of foreign investment started happening. And when, as you can see in this photo, and I think the next one as well, a lot of construction, a lot of development started taking place in Yangon. Because development had been relatively slow for such a long time, the city wasn't really prepared for this very quick development. And as you can see in these photos, traffic, drainage, all the infrastructure was very quickly very overwhelmed as so many people, so many companies, so many new projects started coming to the city. And so this is a quote from the chairman of the Yangon Heritage Trust, which is an organization that also operates in Yangon and that we work together with a lot. The chairman, a famous historian, said famously, Myanmar will urbanize. Many more people will come to the cities over the coming decade or so. Urban life will define the future of Myanmar. We may have livable cities that are the engines of creativity and productivity, or urban disaster areas that breed crime and social unrest. So that is a little bit about the context. I will stop the history bit before the sort of current affairs and talk about our restoration work now against this context. So because of the relative isolation, Yangon had quite a high level of heritage buildings that were still intact. One of the largest concentrations in any one city in Asia, over 6,000 buildings. So here are just some images. These are some of the large famous buildings downtown, but as you can see, very, very run down after decades of not having been used, having been empty, or yeah, just having sat there. So Myanmar saw a first wave of some liberalization in the 1990s. And this is when there was a first sort of wave of destruction. Land values in the city went up, and yeah, new construction made way for heritage. And that is something that accelerated after 2011. So this is an image that shows a little bit how that often goes. So you have a lot of these small heritage buildings throughout downtown, which are sometimes owned by one owner, sometimes owned by multiple owners. And with the land becoming so valuable, with these buildings being in such a good location, there are developers that approach owners that offer to take down the building, put a high-rise building, and then offer the former owners of the building, maybe not one, but 2 apartments in that new high-rise. So that's often an attractive proposition for people that live in buildings that are quite run down and that don't really have the means to renovate their buildings themselves. Yeah. So the problem that we try to respond to, all these heritage buildings privately owned with owners that have limited awareness of the potential value of their assets, don't have easy access to finance like bank loans or subsidies or anything, limited expertise of restoration, and no access to niche rental markets that could make restoration financially viable. And that was in a context where actually with the development and the growth of the city, an increase in the interest of heritage started taking place. But a lot of these building owners weren't able to link themselves to that. So this shows that ecosystem a little bit more. We have those building owners, but then we also have investors or people with an interest in culture or in architecture who would approach us or previously other organizations who are looking to do something with heritage, but find it difficult to find properties. They face a difficult investment environment, very difficult to obtain permissions, and also difficult to find good service providers, such as property operators or managers. So you have investors, but they have trouble finding investable projects. And you also have tenants. There have been an increasing number of people in Yangon who started wanting to live in downtown and in the small old buildings in downtown Yangon. Something that would hold them back is that there aren't so many modern or well renovated buildings, and people are also concerned about the ongoing maintenance requirements that living in an old building might bring. Next slide. So our restoration model tried to sit in the middle of these 3 stakeholders, providing a way that these can all come together in a good solution. Next slide. So relatively simple the way that it works. So we raise investment, we raise capital, mostly from socially or impact-minded investors, not for very commercial, from very commercial investors. We then take that finance and we pay for design, restoration, all the repair works, oversee that process. We have a design and construction management team. And subsequently, we then manage the property for a certain number of years. And in that period, we have a right to a portion of the revenues. So to a portion of the new rent that comes in. And from that portion that we take, we repay our investors. And so in this way, we don't take over the ownership of a building. We don't take control over a long time. We try and provide people who have old buildings with a relatively short and simple solution to keep their buildings and have a financial gain from it. So it's really intended as an easy alternative compared to selling, to neglect, or demolition. So a lot of this is around awareness raising and building trust with owners. That's a big component in our work. Making sure that we work with those original owners and really reinforce their interest in their heritage buildings. It is often through our enthusiasm and through showing the potential of their buildings, talking about the future, what their children might want. That they become much more active stewards of these buildings. We take all the worry away by doing that restoration design and all the coordination. And then another team, our property management team, manages these properties. So it's a relatively hassle-free solution for that. Next slide. And this is to show how scalable that opportunity has been in Yangon. We have over 6,000 heritage buildings here. And while a lot of the interest in heritage in Yangon often goes to the very large institutional buildings, the big court buildings or the big old religious buildings, the very significant landmark buildings, those often receive attention. It is actually these smaller buildings that really determine a large part of the character of the city as well and form the majority of all the heritage buildings in Yangon. About 80% of the heritage buildings in Yangon are privately owned and are these very typical small to mid-size heritage buildings. So here are just a couple of photos of different projects that we have done, just to give you a bit of an idea. So this is a sort of typical small heritage building in downtown Yangon. And on the right side, you see the couple that owns this. The gentleman has been raised in this property, and it's been in his family for many generations. But what was going on is that when we met them in 2017 or 18, they were actually living only in the bottom right of this building, and the whole of the building was crumbling around them. They had tarpaulins, they had plastic to try and keep the water out, lots of damage, not so comfortable to live in, and they were only living in that one corner of the property. And they were very attached to the building, but couldn't easily afford to do anything about it, and were a bit stuck. They have 3 children. They were very keen for their children to try and do something about this, but their children weren't quite sure yet. One of them is in Singapore for work. So when they learned about us, they approached us and wanted to work together. And in consultation then with them, in dialogue, understanding their family situation, we decided to turn this building into 3 apartments, 1 large apartment upstairs and 2 smaller ones downstairs, so that the 3 children can move back here in the future. And that whole renovation is being financed by us first managing the property for a total of 7 years, in which we can recoup all that investment. In that time, they already make a decent income. And after those 7 years, they have full control over the building again. So either their children can move in or they can continue working with us as property managers. Next slide. So these are just some photos of the restoration. Next, this is the upstairs space. And this is how it looks now. Next slide. This is the downstairs apartment. Yeah, this is another property, similar story. Also been the family house of a Burmese family. Also been crumbling for quite a number of years. Some family members were still living in the building, but difficult for them to come together and do something about the renovation. Next slide. We then worked with the owner of the left side of the building. And once we started renovating that, also the other part of the family owning the right side of the building became interested in renovation. And so it was possible for the whole building to get renovated. Next slide. These are some of the inside photos. Next slide. This is after the renovation. Next slide. Next slide. And this is the owner in the middle, one of the owners, one of the younger generation, with some of our team. On the left is our architect who worked on this project. Next slide. Yeah, so what we have done to date is that we have invested in 23 buildings or units, so working with 23 families. This is just to give a little bit of a sense of the numbers and how this works. But so the renovation size, yeah, on average, we spend between 15,000 and 75,000 per property. This helps increase the rent by quite a bit. One of the things that have worked in our advantage is that there really is a niche market for heritage. People really like to live in high sort of or well-designed high quality heritage spaces. So these projects have been fairly commercially viable. We've been able to pay back our investors relatively quickly, and we haven't had that many vacancies. Actually, this number has gone up a little bit since COVID, unsurprisingly, but altogether no defaults, like no contract breaches or anything yet. Next slide. So this is a map of downtown. So here you can see that very old historic grid as it was set up by the British. So you can see how our projects spread. I believe our buildings, I can't see so well now, but are the ones in red. So that is where we all have properties. And well, later on we will talk about the green projects, which are these complementary public realm projects. Next slide. Yeah, so this is one thing that I wanted to show. So we recently built this new portal. So this is a new website, which, as you can see here, is Yangon's premier site to find unique heritage properties to live, work, or invest in. So with this site, we show our whole offer to anyone who's looking for a place to live. That's the section rent. The section renovate is for building owners. We explain how we can help them, how we can work with them. And we have a section targeting investors that shows, okay, these are the different projects that you can invest in. This is how much money that project needs. This is how much return you can make, et cetera, all the terms. So very transparent, and we constantly upload new projects there to try and do more and more. I won't go too deep into this, also because this is not my area of work and I'm less comfortable talking about it, but we have done some very interesting research in terms of the energy use of unadapted heritage buildings versus adapted versus new build. I think as a social enterprise, we find it very important that we really do have good data to show around the impact that we have. So to our stakeholders, to our shareholders, we report on our financial achievements, but we also report on our impact achievements every year. And so those impact metrics are around income generation, of course, around quality of life, but also around energy use. It is a difficult area, and we're not doing this across the board yet for every property. But yeah, some interesting research that we've done there that really does show that adapted heritage is much more energy efficient. Next slide. Yeah, so a challenge of our model is that because this is a financially sustainable model, it's not subsidized, the numbers need to add up. It is sometimes difficult to take on buildings that are more damaged, that are more complex, that are risky, expensive to renovate, but not per se then yielding higher rents. So this is where in the future we hope to be able to partner more with grant-making agencies or any entity that can provide subsidies to make some of these projects still investable, even though they're much more expensive. And also because we do have that social enterprise model, we are often a little bit nudged towards future uses of the building that generate as secure an income as possible, which is often residential, maybe an office, but galleries, cultural places, educational places, the type of places that we would also love to make. They're harder to create because the revenue of such places is less certain. So yeah, still challenges here, how we can try and bring together different types of finance to also make that possible. Next slide. Oh, no, let's skip this one. This is, I think, turned around. Next one. Yeah, so I wanted to just close with this because this is actually something that we're now starting to look at, including for Indonesia. But so after the last 3.5 years of working on facilitating these private investments in heritage, we are now also investigating the applicability of our model in other cities in Southeast Asia. To see whether this might work somewhere else and could be interesting somewhere else, and whether that means per se that we as an organization go somewhere else, or whether we advise or help other organizations to get a model like this going, that's all still to be determined. But yeah, we wanted to put this out there as a direction that we are now looking at. And it will also be interesting to understand better how or whether cities in Indonesia might be a good location for this type of work. And generally, the key factors for success of our kind of model are really the availability of quite a significant number of buildings. Doesn't need to be thousands, but some number, so that we can have a concentration of impact with owners that see the advantage or are starting to see the advantage of renovation and are willing to discuss these kind of collaborations. There needs to be some interest in the use of renovated buildings and adaptive reuse. So some nascent or maybe already growing interest, taste for adaptive reuse. Quality in the sector, like the restoration expertise in the construction sector, is all very helpful. A conducive government and regulatory context, and then understanding the local relations and finding partners that really understand those local dynamics, because that's what we've learned in Yangon, that really understanding what goes on in neighborhoods, how ownership, how it works, like how to build all those informal links as well that ultimately create that confidence and trust to invest. That's also very important. Next slide. Okay, so I will hand over to my colleague Joe here. So just to sort of put it historically also, we started with this restoration work as the core model, and then started doing small complementary public space projects around those buildings. And that then grew to a larger research and community engagement, placemaking practice, ultimately full departments within our organization. So that's been a very exciting journey. And Joe will talk a bit more about those projects.
Hello, yeah. So I will be sharing about the public realm walk. Yeah. Next slide, please. So as according to the brief history that Emily has previously shared, after the 60 years of military coup, Yangon, Yangon have not ready for the blooming of building industries and other different development status. And according to the studies, we know that Yangon inhabitants of only 0.37 meters square of public space per person, and it is the least in all other country. While Yangon, Bangkok have like 8.5 square meter. Yeah, and Yangon also like suffer from poor drainage and sewage problem, and Yangon has like very higher rate of rainwater, so regular flooding. We always experience the regular flooding. Yeah, and also poor air quality. Yeah, next slide, please. So we have come up with the idea of the Yangon Alley Garden project. So this is the map of the Yangon downtown area. Since 1852, the British established set up the new layout plan of the Yangon downtown. And from there, we can see that Yangon has a very wider road area, and the roads are set up in the grid pattern with each alleyway. Yeah, each alleyway behind every main road, and there are altogether 150 back alleys. And the alley gardens are previously used by the community, not in a very formal way or formal public spaces, but people are using the alley garden as their relaxation area. And at around 1980s, Yangon back alleys are officially closed by the military government. And typical alley garden has a width of 5 meters and length of around 250 meter. So there are very famous Mahabandula Park in the downtown, and if we can preserve and restore all the alley garden into the public space, we can have like 6.7 times of the Mahabandula Park. So people are only rely on that public park for events and other festival activities. So if we can restore all the back alley into the public space, we can have 6.7 Mahabandula Park area. Next slide, please. So this is the conditions of the back alley before we restore the alley garden. So it was full of trash, and it had direct or indirect impact on the health and safety issue of the residents. And also lack of lightings, and it also blocked the sewer system. There are underground sewer system that was previously introduced by the British government, and some are still used, but it still needs regular maintenance. Next slide, please. So it was a very rare photos, the historic photos of the back alley, where people and the Yangonites usually use the space as a relaxation area and knowledge sharing area. Yeah, so we have come up with the idea to restore that back alley and to preserve our cultural identity and create Yangon as a more livable, inclusive, and sustainable city. So when we start introducing the alley gardens, the idea is to use the placemaking process and the community-led projects. So for the public space project, actually the back alleys are the a public area, and it is not private area. So we engage with the local governments. So for Yangon, we engage with the Yangon City Development Committee and deal with them to actually clean the trash. So the trash are around like 2 feet height because the usage of the back alley have changed since 1980s, and current is 20th century. So there are some behavior change and everything. So we first engage with the Yangon City Development Committee, and then we engage with the residents that is actually living there and sharing them the positive impact that we have if we can create a public space. So we actually, for our placemaking project, we have used the framework of the Doh Eain. So there are altogether 5 stages. The first one is discover, define, develop, deliver, and deepen. Before we actually design the physical space, we to engage the community and invite them to the community area or either that back alley itself to actually discuss and engage them. So we always start with the workshops together with the community. So for downtown, the residents are on the upper floor and there are businesses at the ground floor. So we mostly engage with the ground floor and also the upper floor residents, but the actual positive impact will be directly get by the businesses people. So we are still trying to engage and actually attract them to come and collaborate. Yeah. So for example, this photo, we start with the asset mapping. So what will be the asset of that alley garden? What will be the cultural or the physical asset that the community would like to have or would already have in the space, and then we come up with the vision. So this one is one of the alley garden, and they would like to have this space at a active, inclusive, and very fun area, and all the children and adults and also senior citizens are coming together and collectively making decisions for the visions of the space. And we have many workshops for each stage, and this one is for the design workshop. So after we get the vision statement from the community, we as an architect brainstorm the idea, and we invite them, the committee and the children, to present the idea, getting feedbacks and getting feedbacks and also sharing the design ideas, and we collectively change the design, the atmosphere they would like to have, the type of people that they would like to see in the space, and the kind of atmosphere that they would like to create. And this one is for the community building day. So after we get the design and prepare for all the tendering documents for the construction, we actually we start the construction stage. But we do not want to lose the connection and engagement with the community, and also would like to give the sense of belonging and the community pride for their space. We invite the community again during the construction stage and create the events for them. So in the community building, we create the events or the activities, not only for the children, but also for the adults. So we plant the plants together, paint the murals, and creating the products that we will be using in the space. So this one is after we implemented the design and the construction. Children are actually using the space, and they are actually having the kind of different activities. And as you can see in the previous photos, Yangon main streets, the front streets are full with cars and full with cars or other transportation modes. So children actually do not have very much space for them to actually live and play. So the back alley, after creating the space, they enjoying in the alley garden all day, and also the adults are enjoying the space. And we have a kind of methodology to maintain the space. So the maintenance of the space after implementing or after improving the space is one of the main challenges that we are facing. So we have set up the resident committee for each alley garden. And we also create the network of that individual committee to share knowledge. So for the maintenance of long-term maintenance of the alley garden and sustainability of each public space, the committees are encouraged to receive and schedule the events. For example, this one is the festival for, I think, a night. So the famous band came in the Alley Garden, perform some music and like activate the space, and they donate the committee for using the space. So it circulate the money, the maintenance funding, and the committee can launch. The committee can spend that money for the maintenance, and we as a Doh Eain also giving them the guidance and also helping their challenges that they were facing during maintaining the space. So up to till now, we have finished 12 alley gardens, 2 ongoing alley garden projects, and we have then the design workshops and community engagement workshops, up to 30 workshops, and we have 14 resident committee for maintaining the alley gardens. Yep. So this is a map of the alley gardens that we have completed already, and this can actually encourage the alley garden network. So we can also create the events or heritage tour in this downtown area, since we have already finished 12 alley gardens. Another one is the Gaelic placemaking. So as a woman myself, I have like experienced the lack of using the public space as a girl, and there are some negative experience, and we also know from the survey that girls are actually facing the negative experiences in using the public space, and placemaking is also somewhat gender-blind and historically. So we have come up with the idea to create the public spaces that are friendly for the girls by putting the girls in center to design and create the space. So for this project, we have the funding from the Spring Accelerator. Next slide, please. So we have funding, and we survey and research the city where we can have the public end use space. This one is located in Yangon, and it is end use trash piling area, and so to be able to transform this place as a public space, public community park, we engage the residents and member of parliament to use that space, and they also can see the positive impacts that this project will be delivered to the community and also to the city at a large scale. So this photo shows that after we meet with the government officials and the girls and the committee in Yangon Township, we recruit around 15 girls, adolescent girls between 12 to 18 years old, and we meet as a committee meeting. So in that workshop, the girls and we introduce ourselves, building relationships to carry on that project. Next slide, please. So as a Discover workshops, we bring the girls to the downtown and all the other public spaces to actually encourage and inspire them. So what is their experience when they visit the public space that was already transformed? So depending on each individual experience, the positive experience and the negative experience that they face, they bring that experience to the next level when we together design the public space. Yeah, next slide, please. So this is a workshop together with the adolescent girls to set up the vision for the Yangon space. So the girls are very active, very fun and very exciting about the designing and all the process that we will be having for the around 2 to 3 months. So they have come up with the idea for the that public space, the kind of social activities that they would like to have, the environment that they would like to feel in the space. Next slide, please. So after we get the vision, the guests are doing the research for the site. So we always go together to the construction site, the empty site, for them to feel the site itself and to find out the positive asset that the site have already there. For example, the site have the very large tree already there, so we can use that existing trees as an asset to give the shading area. So the guests are also very inspired with this process, and they even would like to measure the site themselves. So we teach them and we train them how to use that measure, how to record, how to do the site analysis, etc. So after we get the site analysis data, the girls are trained and inspired to do the sketching of the space. So the girls are doing the sketch, and they are like the very young designer. They have a very high vision for the space, and we also train them to give the public speaking and also presentation. So they were given the presentation at the committee pop-up meeting. Next slide, please. So this is a day of the community presentation day. The girls are explaining the design that we will be doing in the space to the government officials and the neighborhood around this area. So it also helps them to have the confidence and develop their soft skills. So we are focusing the girls and doing the transformation of the place, but we do not would like to exclude the boys and also the adults. So we have set up the resident committee to long-term maintain the space. So the girls are collecting the information and always inform to the committee member what they would like to do next. Yeah, so after we got the design and also getting the feedback from the community, we have organized the community building day. So in the last photo, we can see that the girls are doing the floor mapping. And when we do the design, we always want to align with our Doh Eain principles like participation, sustainability, and asset base. So we use the recycled material for this project, the rubber mat, and girls and the committee are actually doing the rubber floor mat by themselves. And we invite one of the social enterprise and local craft artists to the site and teach them and giving them the training how to make the mat. Yeah. And we do the stepping stone by ourselves. And yeah, this is the transform place after we have completed all the workshops. And in the launch event, we see the community pride and all the smiling face after transform, because they have experienced the very negative side effects of the end use trash area. And after that, after clean, they have a very nice atmosphere, very good shades, and the play area for the adults and also the senior citizens. Yep. Next slide, please. So this is the events where the children also give the speech, and the committee is also giving the speech, and we give the maintenance manual. So we always provide the maintenance manual of each project, each public space, so that committees, the resident committees are also very familiar with the a site, and they can always check that book, how they can prepare the furniture, or either how to take care of the planks, or how to fix the lighting if they are not very familiar. If they would like to request for help, we are ready. And the books also include all the information, like all the financial information and all the funding information of that project. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the book that we deliver. And after each project, we always do the occupancy survey. So we, together with the help of the girls, we did the post-occupancy survey to the neighborhood to see the positive impacts that they have experienced, and all the like their feelings about the space. And here are some examples of the figures that we have received from the community. So mostly we measure about the urban quality, the safety and mobility, also like attractive to people in their age group. So from 0 to 5, poor to excellence, we can see from that survey that the park actually received the very good feedback from the community. And also for the safety of the girls, we also received a very good feedback from the community. And we get these results because we put the girls in the center, and with the participatory design that together we do together with them. So all the engagement process and all the involvement that the community put together for this project bring this success. Next slide, please. So another one is for the street improvement. So we have already finished the alley garden and also introduced about the Gaelic Placemaking. The another service that we give is the streetscape improvement, and also organizing the events to connect the people and the space. So this is the historic photos of the Rangoon in the past time. We have a very wide road and very widened platform for pedestrian walkway. And this pedestrian area is used for like food and beverage, and also socializing area. But later in this stage, we have very narrow approach. We have narrow pedestrian area due to the development in many aspects. Next slide, please. Very traffic area. Yeah, so the cars are also packed along with the pedestrian area. So it is very challenging for the pedestrians to use the platform. So in the, I think 2 or 1 years ago, the YCDC officials decided to improve the public space, and all the encouragement and all the empowerment that the cities and all the community are having. They are decided to widen the platform. Yeah. So this one is one of the heritage streets in downtown Yangon. The Bogolese Street have the most historic buildings in downtown, and we use this street to organize the event together with the Singapore Tourism Board. So the procedure is always the same for all the placemaking series, but we adapt we adopt the procedure to survey each project. So it is we always find a creative way to engage with the community and to upgrade the space. So for this Bogolese Street, together with the community, we find the existing assets and the area that they would like to improve. So for the Bogolese Street, it lacks lighting. So the community decided to introduce the lighting and also greenery. And we also introduced the parklet together with the community. And it is the first parklet that was introduced in Yangon. So we have organized the street upgrade and also the 3-day festival. So people in all around in different townships in Yangon came to that place and experience the activities and enjoy the space. So for the street upgrade, we always focus on reducing the traffic, organizing parkings, providing pedestrian routes and other qualities like improving the landscaping, etc. Next slide, please. So this is the map of the Doh Eain projects that we have already finished, which include the Restore Heritage Apartment, or the Alley Gardens, and the public space projects. So we not only work on downtown, but also we have one Gaelic Placemaking project in suburban area. Next slide, please. Yeah. So to sum up my knowledge sharing on my projects, the projects that I have been working on, we always focus on the principles of Doh Eain and the values that we use and the framework. So for every project, the participation, the inclusion, asset-based and environmental sustainability, and also financial sustainability. So these are all the values and principles we use to bring together the people and to connect the people and places, and also to upgrade the public spaces. Thank you. I hope the presentation will be useful for everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Very interesting presentation, yeah. Thank you very much, Emily and Joe, for the presentation. Very nice, and we are very amazed with what you already accomplished, yeah, in during your work in Yangon. This actually for some of us, perhaps this is also the first time we know the story about Doh Eain and also the story about Yangon. And I believe actually there will be many questions for you. But first I will ask Mbak Ria, kita foto dulu atau gimana tadi, Ruth?
Right, Pak Punto. Actually, after the presentation, we'll shortly have our first photo session.
Silakan Mbak Umu diatur dulu. Usually photo session.
Yeah. So please turn on your camera if you're comfortable to. Okay. Okay. Everyone's ready. 1, 2, 3. We have so many slides here, so please bear with me again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next slide. This is the last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you very much. I will pass the baton to Pak Punto as moderator.
Okay, thank you, Umu. I will also invite Mbak Ria to join the discussion. Yeah, I think it will be interesting for us to explore more. Yeah, about Doh Eain's experience. I see already a list of questions, and interestingly, we have also friends from Malaysia joining us. Yeah, there are a lot. Hello, Kak Lin. Jo, you remember Kak Lin from our workshop OCNC? Okay. I start with my question actually. So Doh Eain is a social enterprise, yeah, Emily?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, like, because we don't have social enterprise yet in Indonesia. Okay. Okay. So when you choose this kind of type of organizations, what do you think?
Yeah, so this is like a type of legal entity. And actually, I have to say that this type of legal entity doesn't officially exist in Myanmar either.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
So we are following more the sort of international description of a social enterprise, but we cannot register as a social enterprise here. So actually, we cannot have any tax benefits or things like this, which you can often get in other countries that have a special social enterprise legal entity option. So for us, what it means more is that, as any social enterprise, we report on our financial returns and on our impact returns. So our annual reporting is, and our stakeholders look very much at both, and both have to weigh up. If we only would make some money but not really have a tangible result for the community, then it's not okay. If we only make impact but are not financially sustainable, it's also not okay. So that's how we try and operate and balance these two things.
Exactly. So by being a social enterprise means that you have to make balance between social purpose and also in economic goal, right? Yeah.
And the reason mostly because we think it's more scalable. Like we think then if we manage to find a balance between the economic drivers and the social drivers, we think the model is more sustainable and it can grow more, because there might be subsidies or grants or public money available, but such money is not always so predictable, right? It can also end again. And actually in Myanmar, there's not that many grants for the public conservation works. So therefore we rely on
us here.
Yeah, sorry. Same. Yeah, exactly.
In Malaysia.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a big challenge there, right, for the heritage sector, like how to make projects that are financially sustainable.
Yeah, and one more question from me, because I believe the heritage system in Myanmar perhaps similar with Thailand. So actually, government prefer to conserve, temple, things like that, right? It's not really urban heritage.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. There's not really any official protection in place for
You'll need you do a lot of things, to convince people that urban heritage is also heritage that important for community, right? You need to start with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there is some interest and support from the government, but there are no official regulations in place, like no conservation.
Oh yeah, I have to underline that. I have to underline because you said that regulatory framework is ready, blah blah blah. Yeah. So you have to talk with a lot of people to make sure that regulatory framework can fit with your idea, right? Then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are many different aspects of that framework, or of course, if there are very advanced frameworks where restoration is subsidized or supported by the public sector, that's great, but it's also around how easy it is to get any restoration permission, or what the rules are around that. This is a bit of a how do you call that, two-edged knife. Like in Myanmar, there are not so many conservation rules, so that means many parties can kind of do what they want, which is of course not a good thing, but at the same time you don't have like the 2, 3, 4 year procedures that might exist in other places that also make it very difficult to do anything. So yeah, not an ideal situation, but yeah, it depends on, just for us it's important that there is a way to get permission in not too complicated a way to do a respectful restoration according to any rules that there might be.
Yeah, thank you, Emily. Yeah, now we see the questions. But Ria, can you help us? Which question we should? Or perhaps I start with Sofia Islamia Isar. I think this question is for Cho, who just explained, who shares stories about the placemaking process. Sofia Islamia Isar, are you still there? Or otherwise, I just read the question. So she said that I'm wondering the approach to engage the community to this project. I mean, the project that you just shown. So how to assure people to be included in this project, in the projects. So Joe, please.
Oh, I have to unmute Joe. Or maybe she cannot.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, now I got it. Thank you for the questions. And for each project, before we start the project, we start with the stakeholder analysis, and we engage with the we approach the government and the water officer of each project, and also clearly explaining the procedure and the impacts that the project will have.
Okay.
And we also we are quite transparent in all the procedure and process. And as you already know from the history, Yangon has very rare public spaces, and people really want to have the modify and attractive public spaces, not only for their pleasure, but also for the health and safety point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So people are already like excited.
Sophia, you want to add more, something more?
Yes,
Yeah,
thank you very much for the opportunity, Pak.
Yeah.
Because community engagement, I believe this is not an easy thing. So I just really want to know, gitu, how was the first step? So does the government approach the community first, or the organization who approach the community, who have the talk at the first place?
So we, as a Doh Eain, approach to the community. For example, the Ellie Garden project. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So we, as a Doh Eain, approach to the community first. For example, the Ellie Garden project. Before we start the project, we have a list of questions for survey, and we do the door-to-door surveys. So we went to each households and asked the questions, and we introduced the project. From that, we get the interest from the community, and then we invite them for the formal community meeting. And on that community meeting, we explain again for the project and the procedure. and only the government helps on the necessary infrastructure work, for example, cleaning the trash, repairing the underground sewer system, and also the drainage pipe repairing, etc. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Then Pak Yuwono, mau langsung nanya Pak Yuwono? Silahkan Pak Yuwono, ini ada pertanyaan. Sorry Pak Yuwono, nih saya unmute dulu ya, jangan. Ya.
Oke, ya. Udah saya. Oke.
Bisa dibaca saja Pak. Ya, silakan.
Ya, oke, dibaca aja. Saya mesti baca ya.
Ya.
Oke, bentar saya. Oke, sorry. I have some question for Mrs. Emily Rowell. According to your presentation, you mentioned that the key successfully, not easy to write. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, sorry. Oh yeah. I have some question. According to your presentation, you mentioned that the key successfully factor of heritage and investment management model are building owner, rental market, restoration and construction sector, government and regulatory context, and government and regulatory context and local relation. My question, if we can call them as stakeholders, which stakeholder act as the main driver? Yeah, because among of the stakeholder, there must be one as the main driver of the management model, and which one as the antecedent, which one act as a mediator, and which one as like a moderator or a supporter in management model. And in the case of investment heritage in Yangon, can you explain how they successfully execute the management model? And the second question, who is better to be more dominant, whether the private sector or public sector in this heritage investment case? And the third question, how they successfully manage the stakeholder conflict happen in the management model, whether a top-down approach or bottom-up approach. Like in the case in Jakarta Old Town City, there are a lot of stakeholder conflict. Yeah, maybe already 4 or 5 governors cannot solve until now the stakeholder conflict. And one more question regarding the urban designer. Which one? How important the role of urban designer in the investment management model in Yangon?
Thank you.
If my question is too many and too stupid. Thank you.
4 questions from Pak Yuwono, but you can choose one or two questions.
Okay.
And about the case of Kota Tua Jakarta, of course we will discuss it next week. So it's okay.
Because I just know one case, Jakarta Tua.
Okay.
Another case I don't know.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Pak Yuwono. Please, Emily.
Thank you very much for all these very thoughtful questions. I don't think they're stupid at all. You're getting right to the core of our model, so I really appreciate the questions. Let me try and answer. I'm happy to try and answer all of them. So I think how you're describing the different stakeholders, the factors that I mentioned and the dynamic between them is exactly right. Those are the stakeholders. That is the web that needs to come together in some way. What I think is actually the case in Yangon is that all those Stakeholders are open to this kind of model, but there wasn't yet an initiative. And I think that's exactly the role that we play, connecting these different stakeholders. I think that can be different in other cities or places where maybe the local government takes a more proactive role, or where maybe building owners themselves are very actively sort of trying to find solutions. I understand, for example, that in Beirut in Lebanon, since the explosion, because so many buildings in the historic center got damaged, I think also the local residents themselves are very actively trying to find solutions. This is a different context, of course, with the explosion there, but there are also now initiatives coming up there that are driven by residents. So yeah, I think it can sometimes be the government, it can sometimes be residents. Yeah, but I think in the case of Yangon, that's very much the role that we have played, fueled by the observation that there was a growing rental market. And that is what created the opportunity. So I think we very much play the role of drive or taking the initiative and then being the mediator and moderator between these stakeholders. So we facilitate everything between these stakeholders. We, on behalf of the homeowner, deal with all the government permissions. On behalf of the homeowner, we deal with finding a tenant and organize the signing of agreements. So yeah, we try and make it as easy as possible for everyone by having those sort of core specialties in our team. So maybe I'll answer the third question first, and on how we manage conflict. So far, actually, this has been relatively free of conflict, and I'm aware that we're quite lucky there. I think it has to do with the fact that our projects are relatively small. We're not renovating very large buildings that are very significant with lots of interest. Also, the buildings that we renovate are privately owned. So yeah, in that sense, it's smaller scale. I think if the volume of our work or the size of the projects will grow, that might be different. But so far, I think that's been relatively okay. But if conflicts would arise, generally we would take a bottom-up approach to trying to resolve them. Also because the government isn't very involved in this kind of work. So yeah, I think like with the public space projects also, if there are conflicts within the neighborhoods or maybe with the neighborhood and the lower levels of government, then that is organized as much as possible, bottom up and collectively. Then the second question on who is better in terms of these investments, the private sector or the public sector. Yeah, thank you.
There is another voice.
I think it's.
Can you repeat the last sentences?
Yeah, I think yeah. No, so the question on the public and private sector roles, right? Who is better to be more dominant? So on that question, I think in an ideal situation, if the government is very proactive and has a very good vision, it's of course really great. Because then you have someone who can take that mediator role and balance different interests. Maybe also look at the interest of private building owners, of the general public. It is just not always the case with that there is a local or a government that takes that interest. So yeah, so in that regard, it's difficult to say which one would be ideal because there isn't always a choice. Another thing that I should point out, though, is that our private sector model, our model, and maybe other private sector initiatives even more so, it may not always be possible to create the same results for the general public. Like I was pointing out in our presentation, because we have a financial sort of sum to achieve, it's harder for us to create a gallery or an educational space or these kind of spaces that are good for the general public, just because we cannot recoup the investment so easily. So that is where the public sector is needed. And yeah, I think that's where different actors for different types of projects, and that mix is really important because everyone has their limitations. And now there was a fourth question, but I don't remember it. Apologies.
Urban design, but perhaps Joe can help us with these questions. What is the role of urban design?
There is noise.
Okay, Pak,
in this
sudah
room.
terkendali.
Yeah, last question about the
role of
urban designer in Yangon case.
Because Joe is the architect or perhaps also the urban designer, perhaps Joe can also answer this question.
Joe, you want to answer this one?
Please, Joe.
The role of the urban designer?
Yeah, thank you. If Joe would like to explain. Yeah.
Yeah, this one. So I think urban designers also played a very much important role in the investment and management model, because urban designer help shapes the city and also shapes the lives of the people, and then after that the city shapes up. So since Yangon is the developing country and we still have many assets like the historic places, so the urban designer play as a initiator to empowerment the young fellow professions in the industry and also to the government to help and manage the assets that the city already have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. But yeah, Emily, I think Pak Yuwono.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, gave a very interesting question about which one should be the dominant actor, because as I once discussed with a friend from Netherlands, and in Indonesia, we see that in Netherlands, public sector is very dominant in heritage conservations, and we want to be like that. But one day, you know, the Netherlands have problem with budget, right? So a lot of budget cutting for cultural sector.
Yeah.
And they cannot be too dominant in heritage conservation or other cultural sectors. And they said that, oh, okay, because of the situations, they want to be like what happens in Indonesia. So involving not really private, but community in heritage conservation, for example. So different context, of course, and the result is there is no single model for every context, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Mbak Rika. Okay, next questions. Rika Ang.
Okay, thank you for the answers.
Yono, terima kasih. Mbak Rika?
Ya.
Silakan.
Terima kasih, Mas Punto. Ya, in one of your slides, I saw a couple that they are the property owner, you said. I wonder where you transfer the property owner after you find the tenant to occupy the buildings after being restored.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, I always forget to ask they to introduce themselves. I will start with Mbak Rika. Mbak Rika, please introduce yourself first.
Okay, terima kasih Punto. Yeah, my name is Rika from Sumatra Heritage Trust. Thank you.
Architect.
Architect.
Yeah, okay. Terima kasih Mbak Rika.
Yeah, thank you. Very good question as well. So in principle, because we manage these properties for some years to make the investment recoupable, that means that for some years, the family cannot live in the building or not in the entire building. However, because we start paying a portion of the new rental income to the owner from the beginning, that allows them very easily to find another place to live nearby or wherever they wish. So we've had some owners who might move to an apartment across the street for some years, or some owners who really move because they just hope that the next generation will use the building again. That's what happened in the case. In that case, actually, the owners were quite keen to move to the Chinatown area. So they were also keen for other reasons to move closer to family. So they weren't planning to return to the building also because they're quite old and it's much too big for them. I should also say that some of the properties that we renovate, they are already empty. So they are so dilapidated that no one is living in them anymore and they're just being used as storage. So then actually through our model, we can make them inhabitable again, or at least a source of income for the family if they choose to rent it out. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. So in the case you readapt the new function for the building after restoration, let's say before the building is a dwelling house, and later on you subdivide it into a retail store or something like that. How the family or the property owner will go back then? Have you considered? I mean, do you consider that?
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. So the designs, the plans that we have are made in consultation with the owners. So it's we ask them how they want to use the space in the future, and we also show them the designs and the plans for their approval to make sure that it fits with their plans as well. But yeah, nonetheless, in an ideal world, we could of course do a renovation and they could continue to live there from the start. But that is of course what makes the financial sort of component impossible then, and therefore the scalability. So yeah, that's the sort of the factor of the model that makes it feasible, that for a couple of years we do need to manage the property, or at least part of the property.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Emily. Your work is really awesome. A very nice presentation from both of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next questions from Mas Samsul Ariman. Mas Samsul? I think Mas Samsul Ariman's questions relate to the question from Mbak Ratri, Mbak Diah, and also Mbak Bu Wiwin. Mas Samsul Ariman? Okay, I just read the questions then. So he was asking, during your project, have you ever met a building that has a sentimental value, not only for the owner, but also for the country as well? As far as I know, mostly in the case of Indonesia, heritage building has always a connection with government. And in that situation, the owner want to change the building into the new function and doesn't represent the original function of the buildings. Do you have any experience with that, and how you deal with that? And also another question is like whether you after the renovation project are used for commercial uses, for example. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question. And that's very interesting. Actually, we haven't had that situation so far. I think, again, because of the small size of the heritage buildings that we focus on, these small shop houses or shop house style houses. Yeah, I could imagine that being a challenging situation if something like that happens. There are some other examples of that and some conflicts of ownership and intention that have happened. Those became very complicated. So I think we feel quite lucky that so far we haven't had any issue like that. And we've mostly dealt with these smaller family homes. Sorry, it's not very helpful. I don't think we have a lesson learned to share there. And the other question.
Yeah, Bu Hesti share something about, so she said that, I don't know whether you know Hasti from the Netherlands. Okay. Bu Hasti, silahkan Bu Hasti.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Yeah.
I have to, can you hear your voice clearly?
Dimatikan satu Bu Hasti, tolong. Iya.
So, I have killed the other one. Hi, Emily and everyone from Yangon and Indonesia. It's very nice. Thank you to listen to the discussions. Well, I mean, Punto and I and several organizations from the Netherlands of Indonesia have been trying, at least in the last 7 years, to raise awareness about the importance of economic calculations in all heritage projects. What you have mentioned in your presentations, that you always calculate about the financial aspects of all your projects. If it doesn't give you profit, you don't do it. Is it, Emily? Am I right?
Maybe sometimes we do it, but then it has to be balanced with another project that is.
That's what I mean. I mean, so financially, you cannot afford to be bankrupt or to be not to earn money. And that's what actually we try to show examples. And then because we cooperate with the Netherlands, so we ask Stadsherstel Amsterdam or Stadsherstel model. That is the model that is widely applied in the Netherlands. It has proved to be successful financially almost 60 years. So the model has to be good because it has proved itself. So we have brought experts and we have shown practical examples to the Indonesians, but it seems that most experts involved in heritage now are not from economical backgrounds. So this economy
wanna be, yes, but not from economic background.
What do you mean? Did you say? I missed it.
Yeah, we want to do economic, yeah.
Yeah, but it has to be someone with financial, insights. I mean, I cannot do myself, although I have learned.
Punto
and I we took today's course, I think, by Stadsherstel Amsterdam to do all the calculations. But we are not experts. Now, what I'm trying to say is the model is there. Indonesia doesn't have to start from scratch. We can, as Punto said, that there is no single model that we can use everywhere, nothing. It has to adjust to Indonesians' context. But at least we don't have to start from scratch. We can learn from you in Yangon, which might be more appropriate because Myanmar and Indonesia are in the same continents with a lot of similarities. But we also can learn from other models. But the problem is now there must be a group of people, organization, who also take a look at the economic sides of the heritage projects. The closest practice that has been done in Indonesia is in my opinion, in my view, please correct me, Punto is JOTRC in the old town of Jakarta. At least several years ago, someone from Jakarta has to update me about the JOTRC.
We will.
But I think they are
On another
still
occasion, we will update you.
Yeah, I have talked with Yayat last month to update me about it. But Jakarta Old Town Revitalization Enterprise organizations is the only organizations in Indonesia that the closest to the economic heritage model. But I'm not sure whether they make profit or at least make a balance of their incomes. I'm sorry that Angie not with us today.
Actually, Angie is with us.
Or Angie, probably you can tell us whether your organization make a profit or at least balance to be able to finance your organization yourself. So that is so. I mean, the whole discussions actually is not new for Indonesians, but we just tend to forget that we have the effort, we have the mediums, we have everything available. We just need to practice, to try, just move a little bit more from architectural, urban planning, and all the physical approach, which is already excellent. Just look at the money. This morning, maybe I can give you one example. This morning, I got a WhatsApp, someone from Indonesia asking me whether this is right or not, because there is a municipality government would like to renovate an old city center to create income for the local government. So he wanted to ask me whether that is the right thing to do or not. I said, of course, municipality earning money by renovating old city center, it is right, as long as they do it on the right way, conservations. So it seems that he expected me to blame the government because they want to create revenue from conservations. So money and conservations are still two different worlds, and it seems that you make a sin. So, okay, I give opportunity to others to share or to continue the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Asti. Yeah, but I also want to add something. So from my side, there are things that I see the difference between, for example, between the Doh Eain and Stadthuisstijl, and also the things that happens in Indonesia. So first is that that's why I start the discussion with your social enterprise, because it doesn't in Indonesia, it doesn't exist. But I just realized that also in Myanmar doesn't exist, because, for example, this organization that you mentioned is profit oriented. And then secondly, you combine this approach, the conservation and social and economy, with things like placemaking. That's why the title of our discussion is Heritage and Placemaking, because we cannot only focus on the buildings, and ignoring that the fact that the environment is, is not in a good conditions. You have also to do something with environments. That's what happens in Kota Tua Jakarta. People always complaining that sungai itu kotor, the river is not good, and then we don't have enough infrastructure, blah blah blah. But those heritage and this infrastructure is always separated things in Kota Tua or other old town in Jakarta at the moments. So that's what I see, new things for us from the case of Emily and Doh Eain, this social enterprise approach and the combination between this heritage conservation, placemaking, and other urban design approach or urban planning approach. Begitu Bu Hasti. Mungkin Bu Hasti dan kita harus mulai datang lagi Bu Hasti buat mendorong proses-proses yang kemarin itu, kita bikin momentum.
Nah, I think we have a lot of momentums, but I mean, you even didn't mention economic from just now, what you have tried to clarify with us. So while Emily's even started her presentations from calculations.
Yeah.
So
the social enterprise, I mean.
I think from 121 people who joined the discussions now, most of them from Indonesia. I really want to know how much they are interested in calculate their projects to create revenue. So
I agree with
our big problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Emily is there. I'm here in Amsterdam, so we all have momentum. Just start, do it.
If I may point out two small things, maybe about why that maybe has made our work more feasible. But one is that different from Stadsherstel, we don't buy the properties, we just take a lease, so we have a temporary arrangement. There are advantages and disadvantages to that, but at least it makes it a bit more flexible around the needs of a family. So I think that's also allowed us to move relatively quickly. And another one is really the fact that we're focused on these small scale buildings. I think with all of our work, what we try and do is start small and easy to like create some examples and create some trust and confidence. And that's exactly how it started with Doh Eain. We did one small project and another one. Family started seeing like, hey, this is interesting. We also want to work with Doh Eain. And then it became from 2 to 5 to 10. And same with all the other projects that also Joe spoke about. Like, I think maybe different in Jakarta is that the buildings are very significant, the interests and the stakes are much higher, and that makes the context harder. Of course, ultimately, if you really want to have a big impact and really transform large areas of a city or large public buildings, you end up in that space. But there is also a lot of opportunity in that smaller sector, private, residential, sort of space. Yeah.
Waktunya tidak. I think this is the last questions from Mbak Rati. I will just read the questions. I have question on how do you find or approach investors and assure them for the projects. So you need to find investor, right? So do you prepare business plan and management plan? I think it's related also with the statement from Ibu Hasti. How? It's personal approach or what kind of approach do you?
Yeah, no, we've slowly started building a network of investors. These are mostly private people so far. We're not so old an organization yet. We're now moving to discussions with institutions, so with some local banks and also investment funds. But so far it has been private, wealthy individuals that support us. And indeed, we approach them with a full business case, like a financial model, a presentation with the story of the building, everything. And we also now raise investment on a project by project basis. So we really give them like a portfolio opportunity, 1 project, 5 projects, and then present all the numbers.
Okay. And also, fortunately for us, if we agree, for example, to use your model here, we have already ada Pak Diki from KEM. I don't know whether you know KEM. KEM apa ya Mbak Ria ya? KEM itu painting pabrik cat.
Yes. Painting company.
Painting company.
Yeah.
Temannya saya.
Is willing to support heritage conservation. Also Pak Yuwono is painting company.
Tim kawan saya itu.
Siap. Bantu-bantu ya Pak, please help us using this model ya in Indonesia ya Pak ya.
Yes.
Because sorry, honestly, I mean like a project in Garden Alley, painting and etc. It happens also in Indonesia. But I mean the approach that Cho use and Doh Eain use approaching community first and then doing this beautification. I think we also need to see that as a step by step that we can follow for Indonesian case. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mbak Ria, Mbak Umu, kelihatannya waktunya habis ya.
Yes. I think before we close, I would like to ask Pak Boy Birawa as the.
Jadi before that, thank you very much for Emily and Cho for the presentation or also discussion. We still have opportunity next week to discuss further about this model with a few people. We will discuss it in this WhatsApp group.
More wonderful.
More detail about that. Yeah. Silakan Mbak Ria.
Thank you, Pak Punto. Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Cho. And before we close, I would like to ask Pak Boy Birawa as a representative of Badan Pelestari IAI Nasional.
Thank you for the chance. Thank you for Emily and Cho about the presentation. Well, actually, this interesting approach. Yeah. Maybe some kind like this can work for Kota Tua, because Kota Tua is a lack of cultural, because no inhabitants inside. This is like a approach to put one part between government, owner, and investor. Then there is an initiator that can make them can work. But of course, this is a business approach. This is what I call models for preservation as business models. Probably we need something that investor coming inside, but somebody have to link the three of it. The government that create regulation that sometimes problems for investor, because it's always changed and investor didn't like it. And then the most important actually, beside that, why it I feel a bit lack of architectural and historic approach. So, well, the business is always like that. Yeah, if we need it, we need the investation for the heritage situation that sometimes, like Kota Tua, is becoming a deadlock. Yeah, because it's always confrontation between regulation to investor, and then there's the owners is just waiting for the time for the best for them. So the models is interesting, maybe can work for the situation like Kota Tua. It needs trust from owners, trust from investor, and then of course trust from government. Sorry, how to make it happen is how to project about the later or future situation that will showing that what they did and can make a benefit. All the participant of the fort is a net benefit. Government net benefit. The owner, of course, investor. Yeah, it's most. I think the most important is profit. And then, of course, the initiator also need, like what we hear, that we need a profit from this situation. But don't forget, this actually will affect on gentrification in the future. So it's caused by capitalistic economic system. Economic system always creating a gentrification. So there is no culture or then any regeneration. There is no regeneration. If they stay there, then the price is higher. Then they will sell to somebody else to buy their land. Their building, and the culture will lose. We won't see it anymore. This is important thing that when we think about that, how a business can solve the heritage situation. The Kota Tua is, of course, like I say, is here, but for Arab community, Chinese community, Melayu community, that becoming some kampung, special kampung, won't work. This system or this model won't work. What I saw there is in the photos. There's it's the middle class income people. So it's very different what we see in the our Chinatown in the Kota Tua or in the north Luar Batang. It's very different. Also the Kampung Banda it's not in the case. But if we want to create livelihood for Kota Tua in the inside the walls, probably these models can solve. So I think that's all that I can comment. But we can learn something from this situation, that there is always another solution, another models for solution. But we have to be careful, like first I stated about the lack of historical, architectural, and the cultural for the situation. Maybe have to be carefully maintained, otherwise we lost it. And we have just buildings, concrete things, and physically, but we lost the interesting, what I call ideal common sense of good community. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Boy. Okay, Umu, I give to you to close the session.
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Boy, for the closing remarks. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Cho, from Doh Eain, for sharing your knowledge and your experience. Thank you to all collaborators, and most importantly, thank you to all of you, to all participants, for carving out your time to join us today. So we will shortly take another group picture. So if you would like to turn on your camera again. Okay. Okay, I will cue in 1, 2, 3. Please bear with me. Another 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you so much. We will see you on the next Heritage Talk. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Cho. Thank you, Punto.
Thank you, Cho.
Thank you, Pak Boy.
Dan Bapak sekalian, terima kasih semua.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.